Hi, Assalamualaikum to Sir Syafiq and friends. So today we are going to present about the Function Election Commission in Malaysia. In this group consists of 6 members which included me. I'm Nuzafira Farhana Roslan. This is Nur Hamiza Othman, a presenter for Introductions of Election Commission in Malaysia. This is Wan Ashikan Wan Mahmud, she presenting for the first main functions of Election Commission. Then, this is Mazni Fazlina Yahani, presenter for the second main functions. Faradina Muhammad Ashraf is a presenter for the third main functions of Election Commission, types and process of Election Commission. And lastly, Siti Nur Azma Diana Muhammad Nur will present for the conclusions for this topic.
The Election Commission was established on 4 September 1957. The establishment is where the power to hold general elections on the State Legislative Assembly and the House of Representatives is under the responsibility of Election Commission. By-elections will also be held in the event of a vacancy and also managed by Election Commission. All the matters that are related to the election in Malaysia will be managed and supervised by the Election Commission. For initially, the Election Commission consists of one chairman and 2 members only, where the first chairman of the Election Commission was Datuk Mustafa Al-Bakri Hassan, and together with 2 members, which is Tuan Lee Yubun and Tuan Jit Singh. To perform all the related functions, the Election Commission has established a Secretariat Department and headed by a secretary who also acts as the Chief Administrative Officer of the Election Commission, which is HKCD. The number of Election Commission members appointed to represent the state of Sabah and Sarawak was done in turn after the entry of Sabah and Sarawak to form Malaysia. The Election Commission does not refer as an independent government body or not. The constituency is designed by the Constitution to protect the freedom of the Commission. All the members of the Commission will be appointed by His Majesty Yang di-Pertuan Agong after the consultation with the Conference of Rulers.
So today I would like to present about the first function of Election Commission in Malaysia, which is the redelineate parliamentary and state electoral boundaries. The process for the redrawing of election boundaries is detailed in Article 113 and therefore the 13th Schedule of the Federal Constitution. Article 113 of the Federal Constitution authorized the Election Commission to manage reviews of federal and state electoral constituencies boundaries not more than once every 8 years. The Election Commission must make recommendation for boundaries to suit provision within the 13th Schedule. Firstly, the members of Dewan Rakyat shall be divided into constituencies in line with the provision contained in the 13th Schedule. The total number shall be similar to the number of members to 1 members elected for election. The total number of constitution in the states of Malaysia is committed in accordance with the provision consisted in Article 46 and 13th Schedule shall be handed out for each state. The Federal Constitution shall be allocated to several states in such way so that the voter quota for each state is as close as possible to the voter quota for the Federation without causing excessive imbalance between the quota of the state's population and the quota of the federal population. Other than that, each state shall be divided into constituencies in such manner as may each constituency contains a number of voters which is close to the state electoral quota, by making appropriate calculation on the different race-related division and differences in population quantity. Electoral constituencies are determined in two steps, which are the first one, the apportionment of parliamentary constituencies among the many states, and the second one is the delineation of both parliamentary and state constituencies in each state. Election Commission also decide whether and how much to clear out from the provisions of the 13th schedule in extra reviews brought about by a change in the number of either parliamentary or state seats. Most importantly, the Election Commission can have an important effect on constituencies that are delineated. True, the Election Commission only suggests and the government dispose. However, it will not serve the image of the ruling party for the Prime Minister to make a regular and a large-scale amendments to the public recommendation of an apparently unbiased commission before they were approved by Parliament. I think that's all from me. Thank you.
Secondly, the next main function of Election Commission in Malaysia is to undertake the voters registration and electoral review. It consists of two voters registration, which are not registered yet voters and already registered voters. For these two types of voters, SPR held two different categories of registration. The first category is new registration. New registration is for the voters who are being the voter for the first time. And for the second category is the changes of address and the changes of address polling station. The changes of address has to be related with the changes of address of polling station. This is because the address of the voters live have to be linked with the polling station's address. SPR also accepted another two voters, which are ordinary voters and not present voters, or also known as PTH, pengundi tidak hadir. Ordinary voters is the registered voters, while PTH is the voters who live overseas. They can do the election by undi post. The next point is show direction for voting. As for voting, there are some colorations with the voters, which are ordinary voters and PTH. Voting for ordinary voters, they have to go to the registration center first, and then they have to bring with them the identification card for the registration form. For the PTH, it includes the military and Malaysian who lived overseas. They have to be registered as PTH first before they want to vote. They have to go to the office of High Commissioner, embassy and so on, and then they have to follow some steps by SPR. And then the certification for voters registration. The certification is only verified right after the registration were made. It took about 6 to 8 weeks to be verified. Lastly, correction for voters information. The information has to be checked by the voters to ensure there are no mistakes in the information. If there are some mistakes in the information, the voters have to make fast complaint towards SPR so that they can change the mistake. The pieces of information that they can change only voter's name, gender, religion, address, locality, and identification card number.
Election is a competition for the importance in the national politics, and it is aimed to elect those who fit to form a government. The election is vote obviously made by the citizens of the country to choose their own leader. The Constitution of Malaysia has provided the Election Commission to conduct election to the House of Representatives and the State Legislative Assembly in Malaysia.
The system of elections that is used in Malaysia is first past the post system (FPTP) in single member, and candidates who win the majority in the elections will be the winner of the election. There are two types of election, which are general elections and by-elections. General election will be held among the members in the House of Representatives or the members of the State Legislative Assembly after a dissolution happened. The general election will be held if the Parliament or the State Legislative Assembly dissolve itself after 5 years. When the dissolution of the Parliament or the State Legislative Assembly happen, a general election must be held within 60 days. Next, by-election. By-election will be held in order to fill the unexpected vacancies in the House of Representatives or the State Legislative Assembly. For example, sudden death, resignation, disqualification, or cancellation of the election results from the election court. General election or by-election in Malaysia consists 6 stages of election process, which are the first one is read and notice of election. When the dissolution of Parliament happen or there is an unexpected vacancy, Election Commission will carry out a read and notice to conduct election in their respective areas. Read and notice contain nomination date and the voting date. Second, nomination papers. The officer of the Election Commission will receive the nomination forms from the candidates, proposers, or supporters, or all those three. Other than that, they also need to include the deposit of election and statutory account form or Form 5 for the candidates for House of Representatives members and Form 5A for the candidates for the State Legislative Assembly members. Third, election campaign. Once the nomination process is complete, the candidates of the election can start the election campaign with installation of posters, give a talk to public, distribute the pamphlets of their manifestos, or propose of joining the election, and also house-to-house campaigns. The candidates need to pay the deposit for the campaign 5,000 ringgit for the election of Parliament and 3,000 ringgit for the election of the State Legislative Assembly. Election Commission will observe the campaign to make sure that all the candidates involved follow the rules. Next, polling. On the polling day, registered voters can go out to the polling centres to vote. Election Commission will set the voting time between 8 a.m. until 5 p.m. The voters will be given one ballot paper and should entitled to one vote. The polling centres will close at 5 p.m. Then, official count of votes. Votes will be counted after the voting complete to decide the winner. According with the procedures, vote that had been made by electors at any polling station should be counted at the polling station where the electors voted. The results of the counting votes will be included in Form 14. After the officer reviewed the Form 14 and if it already correct, announcement will be made publicly, and if the votes were still in doubt, the officer will recheck the votes with Form 13 statement of ballot papers. Lastly, announcement of election results. After all the votes had been counted, announcement of election results will be made to announce the candidates that get the majority votes and confirm the winner as the elected representative for the election.
The conclusion of function Election Commission of Malaya, or in Malay we can know as Suruhanjaya Pilihan Raya Malaysia. These agencies will play important role, especially to our country that practice democratic system, because without this agency, we cannot practice the democratic system with fair and the election process cannot be free and fair in the land with us. The Election Commission of Malaya is help us to facilitate the election process with their role that their scope not only regulate election but it also have responsibility to make sure election process can be implemented effectively, because they also have responsibility even before or after election process, which is like review the boundary of parliamentary and the state constitutions, holding by elections and carrying out registration exercises and collect information on newly developed area to ensure a fair representation of voted in its constitution. They also promote awareness to us on how important to vote and revise the electoral roll by delay the name of those who are dead or have been disqualified. That's mean with the Elections Commission of Malaya that they can be sought or referred to us or public people in conduct the voting process people. This agency also help to avoid any negligences during the selection process to make sure the election process can be happen fairly. That's all for the conclusions. Thank you.